Earlier this year, Hatton's, one of the UK's largest and most popular model railway retailers, closed down forever. Now, Hatton's was the go-to retailer for many people, and with them gone, those people are having to turn to other retailers to buy their models. So that got me thinking, which of the remaining retailers are the best, and which ones best deserve our custom? To find out, I went undercover to test them to find out which ones offer the best prices, the fastest delivery, and the best customer service. But first, I needed to select which retailers to test. Obviously, there's a lot of them, hundreds of them. There's no way to test them all meaningfully. So I decided to choose just 5 retailers, including some of the most popular, plus some of the ones that I tend to use the most personally. And these are Rails of Sheffield, TMC, or the Model Centre, Model Railways Direct, Kernow Model Rail Centre, and D-Rails Models, to include a smaller retailer. And my tests were pretty simple. They go like this. First of all, pick a handful of models, making sure that they're in stock at each of the retailers, and compare the prices to see which retailer is the most competitive. My second test was to order one of those models from each of the retailers using the cheapest postage option and compare the postage costs, the dispatch times, and also the quality of the packaging. Finally, my third test is to contact each of the retailers with a model in question and compare their response times and also the quality of their responses. Now, in order to make this an accurate test, I decided not to do any of this under my name. I actually got a member of Chloe's family to order the items and send the messages for me. And that's just to stop any of the retailers putting on a special effort, just in case they know that I do YouTube. I wanted to do these tests as a regular, non-YouTubing customer. So let's get started with the first price comparison, and the first model I picked was the new Hornby Black 5. Now obviously the manufacturers don't allow retailers to discount below a certain price. There is only so low that they can go, but which retailers were selling at that lowest price? Well, Rails were at £206.99, that is the lowest price I can find, and so did Model Railways Direct, again at £206.99. D-Rails models also sold at the lowest possible price of £206.99, as did the Model Centre. All of these at the same price except for Kernow, who added an extra £3, bringing it up to £209.99. The next model I compared was a Bachmann Well wagon, and this time the prices were quite a bit different. Once again, Rails had the best price at £25.95, followed by Model Railways Direct at £26.16. D-Rails was next at £27.15, followed by TMC, the Model Centre, at £27.16, 1 pence more. Kernow once again was the most expensive at £27.95. Next up, I looked at the Dapol N-Gauge Class 68 just to change things up a little bit, and would you know it, once again Rails were cheapest at £129.95, followed by Model Railways Direct, D-Rails and TMC. Each of these had the same price of £137.70. Once again, Kernow brought up the rear, only slightly more expensive this time though, at £137.99. Finally then, I decided to compare an item of rolling stock, this time a Hornby Headley open wagon, and this time it was TMC that was the cheapest. Their price for this was £15.74, then Model Railways Direct and Rails of Sheffield, who both had the same price of £18.89 each, followed by D-Rails models at £18.90, and then finally Kernow, once again the most expensive, at £20.99. So now I'm going to take all of those models that I've compared, add up the price of everything from each of the retailers, and then rank them from cheapest to most expensive. So the cheapest by a country mile was of course Rails of Sheffield. For everything it came to £381.78. Second place was the Model Centre at £387.59, that's £5.81 more expensive. In third place is Model Railways Direct at £389.74, that's another £2.15 more expensive. Fourth place was D-Rails at £390.74, that's just £1 more expensive than Model Railways Direct. And then in 5th place, bringing up the rear, was Kerno at £396.92. That's another £6.18 more than Derail's, and a whopping £15.14 more than Rails of Sheffield, who were the cheapest. So there was a clear winner in this test, and that was Rails of Sheffield, by far the best prices. Do keep in mind though that this test only included 4 different items selected at random. Obviously that's not a dreadfully large sample size. Some of these models may have been on special, and then you've got retailers like Derail's who have a reward scheme which does offset the price a little bit. But at face value, those were the results of my tests, and please do comment down below on your experiences with price at the various retailers. Which one do you find to be the best? Okay, let's move on. So next up, ordering the models. Well, for this obviously I didn't want to spend a fortune, so I didn't go ahead and buy 5 Hornby Black 5s, but what I did do was go ahead and order 1 Headley wagon from each of my retailers. Now the timing for this was really important, so I ordered each of the models just after 5 o'clock on a Wednesday night. Just after 5 meant that all of the retailers were closed for the day and that the orders would be waiting for them the next morning on the Thursday. I picked Wednesday night to do this because each of the retailers in my test is open on a Thursday, which gives them all a chance to get the models out the next day. So let's talk postage then. I picked the cheapest postage option for each retailer. The best price was Derail's, who was the only retailer to offer an economy postage option at just £2.99. Then it was Model Railways Direct, who charged me £3.98 postage, which is only a few pence behind the other 3, who each charged £4 apiece. The big question then, which retailers were fastest to dispatch? Well, the first wagon out the door was from TMC. They dispatched my wagon at 19 minutes past 8 the next day on the Thursday morning, and it was dispatched on 48-hour tracked, that was Royal Mail, and it arrived with me second. The second dispatch was by Model Railways Direct, who sent theirs out at 9:35 AM on the Thursday morning. Now their advertised opening time isn't actually until 11, so that's an hour and 25 minutes before they opened the next day. Pretty impressive. They also sent theirs out on Royal Mail 24-hour, so first class postage. They were the only retailer to do that, and they actually charged a little bit less than most of the others, and this one did indeed arrive with me first. The next dispatch then in 3rd place was Derail's Models, and they sent their parcel out at 2:31 PM on the Thursday afternoon. Now like TMC, Derail sent their parcel out on 48-hour tracked Royal Mail, even though they charged less for postage. Pretty impressive. And the model from Derail's arrived second on the same day as TMC's. The next dispatch then in 4th place was by Kerno, and they didn't dispatch until 2 days after my order on the Friday. However, they had a really good reason for this. They actually noticed the discrepancy between the card holder, the credit card holder's address, and the delivery address, which was obviously different because I paid for the models, but I sent them to one of Chloe's family members. And they actually got in touch with me to confirm that this was all okay before sending out the model. So while this did slow the delivery down a little bit, you've got to give them points for vigilance there. They were the only retailer to get in touch about that. And I did do this test again later on just to give Kerno a fair chance at being quick. Otherwise, I think they would have dispatched pretty early. So top points to Kerno for vigilance there. And their box arrived with me on the Monday, which was again sent out on 48-hour post. Okay, so the final model to be dispatched was from Rails of Sheffield. I received the dispatch email at 12 minutes past 6 on the Saturday morning, and they sent it out on 48-hour tracked, just like a lot of the others, and it arrived with me on Monday morning at the same time as the Kerno box. With Kerno, of course, I know why that model was delayed. With Rails, I don't know, I didn't hear anything from them. They might have just been slow on this occasion. So the fastest dispatchers were TMC in top place, followed by Model Railways Direct and Derail's Models in that order. All of these managed a next day dispatch. I think Kerno would have done too under normal circumstances, and I want to give a special shout out to Derail's for charging £1 less on postage and still getting it to me pretty quickly. Like I say, I did repeat this test again the following week to give Kerno another chance and also to get a second data point for the other retailers, and I'll talk about how that went in just a second. For now though, all of the models are with me, so it's time to talk about the quality of the packaging. So let's start with the first box to arrive with me, and that was this one from Model Railways Direct. Now for this test I'm not focusing too much on which parcel arrived with me first, because that's obviously down to the speed of the courier and it's outside of the control of the retailers. That's why I'm choosing more to focus on the dispatch time rather than the actual delivery time, just to be fairer. However, this one arrived with me first because Model Railways Direct sent this out on first class post, 24 hours at no extra cost. So this one did indeed arrive with me first, thanks to the retailer. So first of all, size of the box, yeah, for a wagon box, which is going to be about this large, sensible sized box, so it's nice and economical. Let's break in and let's see what the packaging's like. I'm going to hide the invoice, obviously, if that becomes visible, just because of privacy. Okay, so we've got nice air-filled bags here to cushion the model, which is down there at the bottom, and it's arrived in good shape. So, good quality packaging, sensible sized box, very timely delivery, well done Model Railways Direct. Next up then, we'll do the Model Centres box. This arrived with me joint second, and it was sent on 48-hour post. Let's open up the box, which is also sensibly sized. More of a square box than a rectangular one, but still, yeah, very sensible size. So again, nice and economical. Let's have a look how the Model Centre packed it. We've got a bit of sort of material there. I don't know what that will do, but it's nice to have a bit of extra cushioning. And then, yep, we've got some bubble wrap wrapping the entirety of the box, which also arrived in good shape. So well done the Model Centre, more than adequate, very nice. Okay, the next one to arrive was at the same time as the Model Centre, so it was joint second. This one was from Derails, who also sent this out on 48-hour post. And let's see what the packaging is like here. So slightly different approach. We've got shredded paper here and hand-wrapped box in bubble wrap. Look at that. So they've actually gone ahead and wrapped this up properly, and we've got this, so double packaging solution. Great work on Derails models, and yep, the wagon is in tip-top condition. And again, another economically sized box, so very good. I think that's the best we've seen so far. Okay, now we come to joint third place. The next one comes from Kerno, and this was also sent out on 48-hour. This is not in a box, but in a bag. But it's only a wagon, it's not a loco, so hopefully that will be adequate. Let's open this up. It's going to be a bit more awkward, this. And so the Jiffy bag itself is cushioned with bubble wrap, and the model itself is also cushioned with bubble wrap. It's been hand wrapped again. So let's get this off. So this has got a double packaging on it. It's got the Jiffy bag and the hand wrapping, and the model is in good shape. So it's pretty much on par with Derails, although Derails sent a box. This was a bag. I would say the box is a bit sturdier than a bag, but we're splitting hairs there, I think, aren't we? So again, absolutely fine. Well done, Kerno. And then we got the last one to arrive with me. Well, it was in joint third place, although there was no sort of query with my delivery address with this one or whatever. So yeah, this one was, I guess, the last. And this is with Rails, and yeah, size of the box, much, much larger than the others. So slightly less economical, this. Obviously it's going to take up more space on the van, which means they can carry less parcels, and it's also going to require more plastic to fill the box with packaging. But let's have a look. Paper-based tape though, so that's nice and environmentally friendly. So yeah, we've got a lot of packaging material here for one wagon, as you can see. Let me just pull the invoice out of there. Okay. So yeah, lots of plastic, lots of packaging, but an adequate packaging solution because the model is in perfect shape. So lots of differences in the packaging, but they all did the same job. Very interesting. Next up then, the customer service test. So on the same day that I placed the orders, I had Chloe's family member send out the following question to each of the retailers. Hi, I am interested in the soon-to-be arriving Rapido Class 01 in 00 gauge in Southern livery. I wondered if you could give me some pointers for some suitable rolling stock for this locomotive, please. Any tips you could give would be much appreciated. Many thanks. The first response came from Model Railways Direct, and they were lightning fast. I got an email back at 7:24 AM the next morning. I have redacted the names for privacy. So they said it would probably have run with some Mansell coaches, and they sent a link with search results for those. Hornby make a range of them. I would try and match the livery with the locomotive. Best regards. So that was a lightning fast response, the fastest of all of the retailers. And they did give a good suggestion. They specified some coaches and they also sent me a link to them. The 01 though was primarily a freight locomotive, so some freight suggestions would have been really good to see here. Overall though, it was a pretty decent response and it was received very quickly too. The second response came from the Model Centre, again on the Thursday morning, immediately after opening at 9:21 AM. They said, I'm no expert on these, but I believe Southern Mansell coaches would be suitable. Try here. Again, we've got another link. Kind regards. So really a similar response. Again, pretty brief, and they didn't mention any freight rolling stock, which is a pity, but they did give a specific link to a product, which I think was a good suggestion, and they answered my question. So again, a fair response. The third response came from Derail's Models, again the next day at 2:31 PM. And the response was absolutely unbelievable. They wiped the floor with all of the other retailers. Look at this. So they started with a brief background on the locomotive. I didn't ask for that, but they gave me a little bit of background to help me understand it. That was awesome. Then they put together 3 different train packs just for me so that I could put realistic trains together. The first one was a short branch line train, which included some Rapido SECR wagons in Southern livery. Excellent advice. We've got some freight suggestions there. That's bang on. The second is a short branch line passenger train. 3 coaches suggested here, so not too costly. And then the third pack was a longer passenger train, again with the specific coaches suggested. So Derails went absolutely above and beyond with this response. Masses of detail. They did account for the fact that the 01 hauled freight as well as passenger stock. In fact, it was mainly a freight loco, and they were very, very specific in their suggestions. So fantastic work, Derails Models, by far the best customer service response. The next answer came from Kerno, and it took them a couple of days to respond, but they were still quite quick. I got the email at 9 AM on the Friday morning. The locos were mostly used for freight, therefore any wagons with Southern Railway on them should be fine. There are a lot of them done by Rapido. Bachmann do birdcage coaches, which would probably be okay. Kind regards. So this was a fairly brief response, like the first 2 really. However, they did account for the fact that the 01 hauled freight as well as passenger stock. They didn't include any links though, and I did after all ask for some pointers, so a few examples would have been nice to have seen. The final response then, which should have come from Rails of Sheffield, unfortunately never came. I did receive a confirmation email to say that my query had been received, but I never heard anything back. I did notice though that on their website there is a chat function, so 1 week after I sent my question and hadn't heard back, I decided to get in touch using that function. Well, nobody responded that day, but the following morning I did get an email with a response. Passenger stock would be mostly non-corridor Southern Railway coaches. Good stock would have been anything that could be for a pickup of goods. Kind regards. So this was a particularly brief response. They included no specific examples and no links. They did include a couple of pointers, but a few specific examples would have been nice to see. They were also the only retailer that I had to contact twice in order to get a response. So room for improvement, I think, there. So to sum up on customer service, obviously these retailers are not just box shifters. They are there to provide a service and to give advice if you ask for it. In the end, each of these retailers was forthcoming with their advice, and most of them gave a useful response. However, Derail's Models wins it for me, hands down. I don't think there's really much discussion needed on that. They went above and beyond, giving more detail than all of the others, and they obviously put in a lot more time than the others did as well. At the same time though, this was just one test. I don't want to put the other retailers down for their performance. Obviously, each retailer is going to have lots of different people working for them. Each might give different responses. Some people might have been having a bad day. Maybe my first email from Rails was just missed, and that wouldn't normally be the case. So you can't draw any sort of concrete conclusions, but these were the results of my test. And if you've got any thoughts on your experience with customer service at the retailers, please do share it with me down below in the comments. Okay, next let's talk about my retrial of the model buying experiment. This time I ordered 5 of these Graham Farish wagons, so a bit of Engage, something a little bit different. Let's talk about which retailers offered the best price for this. The best price was TMC at £13.78, followed by Kerno at £13.99. So well done Kerno, not the worst price on this test. Next up was Rails of Sheffield at £14.95, followed by D-Rails Models at £16.95. The most expensive this time was Model Railways Direct at £18.66. Quite steep, that one. So a bit of a shake-up in terms of price this time, with TMC coming out on top. And they came second in the previous tests as well, so consistently good prices from TMC. Well done there. In terms of dispatches then, Kerno was first this time at 7:43 the next morning. So lightning fast then. Kerno are a quick dispatcher when there isn't a query to be made. So yeah, pretty good. Well done Kerno. Second was TMC, once again very fast, at 9:12 the next morning, just after opening, about an hour later than last week, but still very fast. Then it was Model Railways Direct at 9:59 AM, still next day then, nice and consistent, within 30 minutes of the previous dispatch. Next up was D-Rails Models, once again at 2 the next day. So the same kind of time as last week. That must be the time that Royal Mail comes to collect from them, or perhaps the time that they go to the post office. Still though, they obviously have packages ready to go reliably on the next day, which is really good to see. Then Rails was last once again, though a little bit sooner than last time, at 6:42 AM on the Friday morning, so one day earlier than the previous week. Up next then, let's take a look at the packaging job on this much smaller wagon. Right, so we'll start with Model Railways Direct first again, because yet again they sent this out on 24-hour post, so it got here first. Let me get this open. Do this more quickly this time. So yeah, same kind of packaging job, although the box of the model is kind of right down in the corner, so this side of it's not packaged. But again, it's only a wagon, so that should be okay. And it came in some tissue paper. I assume that might have been a Backman job. We'll see whether or not the others come in tissue paper. But yeah, the wagon is in perfect shape. Next up, D-Rails. How economically sized is this box? Nice small box which matches the size of the product. That's pretty good. Let's take a look and see what the packaging quality is like with this. I believe all of these arrived on the same day now, after Model Railways Direct. So again, look at this, top job from D-Rails. A little bit of cushioning here to stop the model moving around. And again, this has been hand wrapped in bubble wrap. Pull the bubble wrap off there. And there we go, Graham Farish wagon in top condition. I think this is the most economically packed of the models that I've received on this round. All right, Kerno up next, in a box this time, not a bag. So that's a little bit different, very economically sized. Again, not a massive box for what is a very small product. So that's good, nice and environmentally friendly. We like that. Lots and lots of bubble wrap inside here, extremely well packed. And yet again, we've got more bubble wrap around the model itself. I think this is the best so far on this round, just because the box is a little bit larger, not to silly levels, but just to give it that little bit of extra protection, and there is a lot of bubble wrap around the model there. And yep, the model is in tissue paper, and the box is perfect, absolutely fine. So well done Kerno. Okay, next up, let's take a look at TMC. Again, they've been very economical here with the size of the box, just right, plenty big enough to give some space for packaging, not so big as to be wasteful. Let's have a look. And here it is, got some packaging around it. Yeah, it's well wrapped, and it's got the tissue around it. That must be from the factory. And yeah, we've got another perfect delivery there with no problems. So well done TMC, wouldn't fault you for that at all. And then finally we have Rails. Yeah, not going to get any points for being economical. We got the same large box. I wonder how many of these you could fit in this box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 16, 24. So we've got one wagon in a box that could fit about 24 of them inside. So yeah, pity that they don't use different size boxes for different size products, because obviously this is going to take up a lot of room on the van for what is a tiny, tiny little box. But here we go. I'll just pull out the invoice, and here we have it. Lots and lots of bubble wrap for this. But in terms of protecting the model, it's done a fine job. So yeah, whichever retailer you choose, at least of the 5 I've picked, your models are going to arrive with you safely. So that is the main thing. If you're interested in the environment, there's things to consider here as well. So now then, I'm going to summarise my experience with each of the retailers. I'm going to award 2 points to the winner of each test and 1 point to the runner-up. First then, let's talk about Rails of Sheffield. These guys were the best on price by far. So if low prices are the focus for you, then you should be shopping at Rails. These are the winner with 2 points. They were the slowest on postage though, not ludicrously slow or anything, but they were noticeably later than the others, although the postage costs were in line with the other retailers. In terms of the packaging, everything arrived well packed, so I don't think you'll be seeing breakages from Rails. I think they could do better though at matching the box size to the products, which would make them more economical. I think the other retailers did this better. In terms of customer service, I think Rails was the weakest of the retailers I tested. They went over a week without responding, and then the quality of the response when it did come was not the best. I'm sure there will be times when their customer service is much better than this, but they were the weakest in my test. Next up then, the Model Centre. They were consistently good on prices. They were the second best in my little price matching test, so I'm giving them 1 point here as the runner-up. They were extremely fast on dispatches. They actually had the best dispatch times in my tests, so I'm going to give these the joint winning mark of 2 points. Postage costs were in line with other retailers, so nothing wrong with that. Everything was also well packaged in sensibly sized boxes with plenty of cushioning, so no problems there. And their customer service, I would say, was good. They responded quickly, and they were also the second fastest, and they gave a useful if brief response. I think these were the joint runner-up for me, so these are going to get 1 point. Next up then, Model Railways Direct. These were middle of the road on prices, a little bit more expensive than Rails and TMC in my tests, but still reasonable enough. They did have consistently fast dispatches though. They managed next day dispatches both times, making them the second and third fastest respectively in my 2 tests. The postage was a little bit cheaper here than the others, but only by a couple of pence. Again, Model Railways Direct, always well packaged, and the boxes used were the right size and plenty of wrap was used. In terms of customer service, they had an extremely fast response, first thing next morning, little bit of a brief response but still useful, and they did provide a link, so that's 1 point. I'm giving these the joint runner-up mark. Next up, let's talk derails models. So their prices were fair, although they were a little bit more expensive than the others. They do, however, have a loyalty point scheme though, which offsets this, so you do get a little bit of money back to spend on future orders. They were consistently good on postage. They managed next day dispatches both times, and they were cheaper on postage than all the others because they offered an economy option. Brilliant packaging from derails models. The outer boxes were always sensibly sized, and at least 2 layers of protection were always used inside the box. Well, this was the joint best for me, so I'm giving it 2 points. In terms of customer service, this was an unbelievably good response. It was still a very fast response coming in the next day, and it was by far the most detailed. This is the easy winner with 2 points. Finally then, let's sum up Kerno, who did the worst on price in my tests on average, most of the time coming in a few pounds more expensive than the other retailers, although not every time. In terms of postage, they did dispatch extremely quickly on the second occasion, and they only didn't on the first occasion because they were checking a discrepancy on my end. I think ultimately you can expect next day dispatches from Kerno, and the postage costs were in line with others. I am going to call these the joint winner and give them 2 points. They weren't the fastest in my tests, but I do want to recognise how vigilant they were with my order. In terms of packaging, Kerno did an excellent job. They used suitable outer packaging both times, and they also used 2 layers of packaging within the outer box. So I'm going to give these the joint 2 points. Both Kerno and Derails did the best job. The customer service was fine, but I think it could have been better given their higher average prices. I think because the prices are higher, you kind of expect to get something for that extra money, and top quality customer service was what I was expecting. Like I say, their customer service was fine, but they were the second slowest, and they didn't actually include any links or specific examples for freight. At the same time, it only took them a couple of days to respond, and they did point me at least in the right direction, so not too bad. So I think we have some results from these tests, and they're not dreadfully conclusive because each of the retailers seem to excel at different things. So if you really kind of care about price, then you've got to go with Rails. If you care about customer service, then Derails is by far the best. In terms of packaging or dispatch, it might be some of the others. But I do have 3 retailers who have tied in top place with 4 points, and they were Kerno, Derails and TMC, so those guys did really, really well. In conclusion then, I don't think there are really any losers here, because at the end of the day, all of the retailers managed to get models to me in a reasonable amount of time. Some better than others, yes, some had better prices than others, better postage options, better customer service, but they all did their job. Now I do want to give all of the retailers featured in today's video a full right to reply. So if they've got any thoughts, any feedback, or even excuses on these tests, then you're welcome to get in touch and I will feature those responses. Also, if you've got a retailer that is a favourite of yours and you think they consistently go above and beyond, please do mention them down in the comments. And if I do something like this again in the future, I might consider that retailer. But yeah, very interesting. I've always wanted to give this a try, and I think it was very, very fascinating and worth doing. Really interesting to learn more about what each of the different major retailers in this country do particularly well, and maybe what they could improve on a little bit. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Comment down below, as always, and let me know what you think. But for now, I'll see you on the next one. You take care, and I'll catch you soon. All right, cheers, folks.